The crystal chandelier above our family's dining table cast sharp shadows across my brother Marcus's face as he dropped the bombshell with a self-satisfied smirk. I'd come to Sunday dinner at my parents' estate expecting the usual condescension about my hobby investments. But this was different. "What did you just say?" I asked quietly, setting down my fork with deliberate care. Marcus leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine glass like he'd just closed a major business deal. "I sold those worthless stocks you left in the shared portfolio account. The one Dad set up for both of us years ago. Someone had to be the adult here." My mother dabbed her lips with a linen napkin, her diamond bracelet catching the light. "Honestly, Claire, you should thank your brother. He's always been better with money. Those penny stocks were just gathering dust." "They weren't penny stocks," I said evenly. "Whatever they were," Marcus interrupted, "they're gone now. I got $47,000 for the whole lot. Which, considering you probably paid nothing for them, is a decent return. I'm putting the money into my restaurant expansion. At least one of us knows how to build real wealth." My father nodded approvingly from the head of the table, cutting into his prime rib. "Marcus is right. You've been playing around with those investment apps for years, Claire. Your brother has 3 successful restaurants. He knows what he's doing." I took a slow sip of water, processing what I'd just heard. The stocks Marcus had sold weren't just any securities. They were Series G protected federal investment securities, government-backed instruments that I'd been assigned as part of my position. Protected securities, with federal tracking protocols. "When did you sell them?" I asked. "This afternoon," Marcus said proudly. "Found a buyer who didn't ask too many questions. Cash deal. Already deposited." My younger sister Jennifer giggled from across the table. "Claire's face right now. He's so mad. Maybe this will teach you to get a real job instead of pretending to be some kind of financial wizard." "I have a real job," I said quietly. "Oh please," Marcus scoffed. "You work from home doing consulting. That's code for unemployed. Meanwhile, I'm running actual businesses, employing real people, making real money. Dad's right. I should have liquidated your position in that account years ago. You clearly don't know what you're doing with investments." My mother reached over and patted my hand with false sympathy. "Darling, maybe this is a blessing. You can finally stop obsessing over those silly stock charts and focus on finding a proper career. Your brother is trying to help you." "Help me," I repeated flatly. "Yes, help you," Marcus said, his voice taking on that patronizing tone he'd perfected since business school. "Look, I know you're upset, but you need to face reality. You're 32 years old, living in that tiny apartment, no husband, no real career. Those stocks were never going anywhere. At least now the money is doing something productive." Jennifer nodded enthusiastically. "Marcus's new restaurant in the business district is going to be amazing. He's putting in a wine cellar that costs more than Claire probably makes in a year." "How much did you say you got for the stocks?" I asked Marcus, keeping my voice level. $47,000. "Why, you want to see the deposit slip?" He pulled out his phone with a flourish. "See? Right there. Deposited at 3:47 p.m. today. The buyer was some investor type, didn't even haggle much. Probably felt sorry for you having such a pathetic portfolio." I studied the screen he showed me. The transaction was real. He'd actually done it. "Who was the buyer?" I asked. Marcus waved dismissively. "Some guy named Peterson. Met him through a business contact. Cash buyer, very discreet. That's how real deals get done, Claire. Not through your little smartphone apps. You sold federally protected securities to a cash buyer you met through a contact," I said slowly. "They weren't federally protected," Marcus laughed. "They were junk stocks in some obscure government contractor companies. Nobody cares about those." My father set down his knife and fork with a sharp clink. "Clear enough. Your brother made a smart business decision with assets that were going nowhere. Be grateful he's willing to manage the family portfolio since you clearly can't." "The family portfolio," I said. "You mean the joint account that was set up for emergency access, not for either of us to unilaterally liquidate the other's holdings." "Semantics," Marcus said. "We both had equal access. I exercised my rights as co-holder. If you wanted exclusive control, you should have moved them to a private account. Your mistake." I pulled out my phone slowly. Everyone at the table watched me with varying degrees of amusement and irritation. "What are you doing?" my mother asked. Please don't tell me you're going to call some lawyer. Marcus didn't do anything wrong. I'm not calling a lawyer, I said calmly, scrolling through my contacts. I'm calling my office. Jennifer burst out laughing. Your office? That's rich. What are they going to do? Send a sternly worded email? I found the number and pressed dial. It rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Director Hayes, I said clearly. This is Senior Analyst Thornton. I need to initiate SEC Protocol 7. Authorization code Delta Tango 973. The table went silent. Yes, ma'am, I continued. Full unauthorized sale of protected government securities. Series G classification. $812,000 in tracked federal instruments sold to an unknown cash buyer approximately 3 hours ago. Joint account violation with federal monitoring status. Marcus's face had gone pale. What are you? I held up one finger, still speaking into the phone. Transaction details. Wells Fargo joint account, number ending in 4793. Sold by Marcus Thornton, my brother, to a buyer named Peterson. Cash deposit of $47,000 received at 3:47 p.m. today. I'm at the family residence now. Yes, the Thornton estate in Riverside. My father stood up abruptly. Claire, what is this nonsense? I ignored him, listening to Director Hayes on the other end. Understood. Federal Securities team and local FBI field agents. ETA 20 minutes. I'll secure the location and ensure all parties remain present. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I ended the call and set my phone on the table with deliberate care. What did you just do? Marcus demanded, his earlier confidence evaporating. I reported the unauthorized sale of federally protected securities, I said calmly. Something I'm legally required to do within 4 hours of discovery. Federally protected? My mother gasped. Claire, stop being dramatic. They're just stocks. They're Series G protected federal investment securities, I explained, my voice steady. Issued through the Department of Treasury's Strategic Asset Program. I hold them as part of my position as Senior Financial Intelligence Analyst with the Securities and Exchange Commission. They're tracked, monitored, and protected under federal law. Selling them without proper authorization is a felony. The color drained from Marcus's face completely. You work for the SEC? For the past 6 years, I said. I'm part of the division that monitors and protects high-value government investment instruments. Those worthless stocks you sold were actually strategic federal holdings worth approximately $812,000. You sold them for $47,000 to an unauthorized buyer in a cash transaction. That's federal securities fraud, money laundering, and theft of government property. Jennifer's mouth hung open. But you work from home. You're always just on your laptop. I work from home because I analyze classified financial data, I said. I can't discuss the details of my work. That's why I've never talked about it at family dinners. My father sank back into his chair, his face ashen. Claire, surely there's been some mistake. Marcus didn't know that selling someone else's securities without permission is illegal? I interrupted gently. Dad, ignorance doesn't excuse federal crimes. Especially not when those securities are flagged in government databases. Marcus grabbed his phone with shaking hands. I'll call Peterson. I'll get them back. I'll reverse the transaction. It's too late for that, I said. The moment you completed that sale, federal tracking protocols were triggered. The SEC's automated monitoring system flagged the transaction within minutes. I would have been notified by my office within the hour even if I hadn't been here. The only question now is whether Peterson was a knowing participant in securities fraud or an unwitting buyer of stolen federal property. This is insane, Marcus said, his voice rising. They're stocks. I sold stocks. That's not illegal. Selling your own stocks isn't illegal, I agreed. Selling someone else's federally protected securities without authorization absolutely is. Especially in a cash transaction designed to avoid normal banking oversight. That adds money laundering charges. My mother's hands trembled as she reached for her wine glass. Claire, please. Marcus made a mistake. Can't you just fix this? Call them back. I can't fix a federal crime, Mom, I said quietly. Once Protocol 7 is initiated, it's out of my hands. The Federal Securities team has jurisdiction now. They'll need to interview everyone, secure all financial records, and trace the entire transaction chain. Everyone? Jennifer asked, her voice small. Everyone involved or who has knowledge of the transaction, I confirmed. That includes all of you since Marcus announced it at dinner. My father's lawyer instinct seemed to kick in. He'd been a corporate attorney before retirement. Claire, think about what you're doing. This is your family. Surely there's some way to handle this internally. Dad, I spent 6 years building my career on financial integrity, I said. If I failed to report this, I'd lose my security clearance, my job, and face criminal charges myself for covering up federal crimes. Would you ask me to throw away my entire career to protect Marcus from the consequences of his own actions? The doorbell rang, echoing through the large house. That was faster than 20 minutes, I noted, standing up. They must have had a team nearby. Marcus lunged up from his chair. Don't answer that. Marcus, sit down, I said firmly. Running will only add more charges. Federal agents are already at every exit by now. That's standard protocol. My mother started crying softly. This can't be happening. Not to our family. I walked to the front door, my family frozen at the dining table. Through the decorative glass panels, I could see at least 6 dark SUVs parked in our circular driveway. Men and women in navy windbreakers with bright yellow FBI and CC lettering were already positioned around the property. I opened the door to find Director Hayes herself standing there, flanked by 2 FBI agents and 3 SEC enforcement officers. She was a stern woman in her 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Director Hayes, I said professionally. Thank you for responding so quickly. Analyst Thornton, she nodded. Given the value of the securities and the irregular nature of the sale, we mobilized immediately. Where is the subject? My brother Marcus is in the dining room with the rest of my family. He has his phone with him and may have contact information for the buyer. FBI will need that phone, one of the agents said, stepping forward. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the bearing of someone who'd spent years in federal law enforcement. I'm Special Agent Rodriguez. This is Special Agent Chin. We'll be handling the criminal investigation while the SEC addresses the securities violations. Director Hayes gestured to the 3 SEC officers behind her. These are senior enforcement officers Williams, Jackson, and Park. They'll need to document all financial records related to the transaction. Of course, I said, stepping aside. Please come in. My family watched in stunned silence as the federal agents and SEC officers filed into our dining room. The elegant dinner party had transformed into a crime scene investigation in seconds. Special Agent Rodriguez approached the table, pulling out his badge. Marcus Thornton? Marcus nodded wordlessly, his face now greenish pale. I'm Special Agent Rodriguez with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. I need you to remain seated and keep your hands visible. You're being detained for questioning regarding the unauthorized sale of federally protected securities. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. Wait, my mother cried. You're arresting him? He's being detained, Agent Chin clarified, moving to Marcus's side. If you could stand up slowly, Mr. Thornton, and place your hands behind your back. This is barbaric, my father shouted. He's not a criminal. Director Hayes stepped forward, her voice carrying authority that silenced the room. Mr. Thornton, your son sold $812,000 worth of government-protected securities for $47,000 in an unauthorized cash transaction. That's not a simple mistake, it's multiple federal felonies. The FBI is well within their rights to detain him. Officer Williams approached me with a tablet. Analyst Thornton, I need you to verify the securities in question. I took the tablet, scrolling through the list. These are correct. Series G instruments, all issued through the Strategic Asset Program between 2019 and 2024. Total verified value as of market close today, $812,340. And you had exclusive ownership? Williams asked. Yes. They were placed in a joint access account with my brother for emergency purposes only, but ownership was explicitly mine. All documentation is in my federal personnel file. Marcus was being handcuffed now, tears streaming down his face. Claire, please. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Sir, Please stop talking, Agent Rodriguez advised. You really should wait for your attorney. Jennifer was sobbing openly. Claire, how can you let them do this to him? I met her eyes across the table. I'm not doing this to him, Jen. He did this to himself when he decided to steal and sell federal property. Officer Jackson was examining Marcus's phone, which Agent Chin had confiscated. Director Hayes, we have multiple messages here discussing the sale, including one to someone named Peterson confirming, cash only, no paper trail. That's going to be problematic for the defendant. My father's face went from pale to gray. Marcus, you didn't. I just wanted to avoid taxes. Marcus blurted out. Peterson said cash deals were cleaner, less government oversight. Mr. Thornton, stop talking, Agent Rodriguez ordered sharply. You're making this significantly worse. Director Hayes pulled out her own phone, stepping away to make a call. I could hear her speaking quietly. Yes, sir. We have the perpetrator in custody. The buyer's identity is confirmed as Jonathan Peterson. Running him through databases now. Given the deliberate structure to avoid oversight, we're looking at knowing securities fraud, not just negligent handling. Officer Park approached my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Thornton, I need to ask you some questions about your knowledge of these securities and the joint account structure. We didn't know anything, my mother insisted. We just thought Claire had some small investments. We had no idea they were government property. But you were present when your son announced he'd sold them? Park asked, typing notes on his tablet. Yes, but... And neither of you questioned the legality of him selling his sister's property without her consent? My father found his voice. We assumed the joint account meant joint ownership. That both our children had equal rights to manage the assets. Officer Park nodded, making notes. That's a common misconception, but it doesn't excuse facilitating the transaction by failing to question it. We're not facilitating anything, my father protested. Agent Chin returned from the foyer. Director Hayes, we have the financial forensics team pulling up now. They'll need access to all computers and financial records in the house. My mother gasped. You're searching our home? We have a warrant being processed as we speak, Agent Rodriguez confirmed. Given the nature of the crime and the possibility of additional unauthorized transactions, we need to examine all financial records. It's standard procedure in federal securities cases. Marcus was being led toward the door, still in handcuffs. Claire, he called desperately. Claire, please. I'll pay it back. I'll give you every penny. I stood up, meeting his eyes. Marcus, you can't pay back $812,000. You sold it for $47,000. Even if you could, it wouldn't matter. These weren't my personal stocks, they're federally protected instruments. You didn't just steal from me. You stole from the United States government. But I'm your brother, he said, his voice breaking. And I'm a federal analyst who swore an oath to uphold the law, I replied quietly. I couldn't protect you even if I wanted to. And honestly, Marcus, after years of you dismissing my career, mocking my work, and treating me like a failure, I don't want to. Agent Rodriguez guided Marcus out the front door. Through the windows, I could see him being placed in one of the SUVs. Director Hayes approached me, her expression professional but not unkind. Analyst Thornton, you'll need to come to the field office tomorrow to give a complete statement. This will likely be a complex case. I understand, ma'am, I said. I should tell you, she continued, lowering her voice slightly, that your handling of this situation was textbook perfect. You reported immediately, you didn't interfere with the suspect, and you secured the scene. Your performance review is going to reflect this very positively. Thank you, Director. She glanced at my stunned family. I know this isn't easy. Federal cases involving family members never are. My family made it easy, I said quietly. They've spent years telling me my work was worthless. Maybe now they'll understand what I actually do. Officer Williams approached with more questions about the account structure, the securities origin, and my security clearance level. I answered everything professionally, providing documentation from my phone when needed. 3 more vehicles arrived, the financial forensics team. They were methodical and thorough, requesting access to my father's home office, my mother's computer, and any shared financial documents. My parents complied numbly, still in shock. Jennifer huddled in a corner, crying and texting frantically. Officer Park quietly confiscated her phone as well. I'm sorry, miss, but if you've communicated about this transaction with your brother, those messages are evidence. I just texted him that Claire was being uptight about the stocks. Jennifer protested. That's not evidence of anything. It establishes knowledge and coordination, Park explained. We'll need to examine the full conversation history. My father finally collapsed back into his chair at the head of the table, his expensive dinner congealing on fine china plates. Claire, what's going to happen to your brother? I sat down across from him, my own dinner untouched. That depends on several factors. The value of the securities means it's definitely a felony charge. The structured cash transaction adds money laundering implications. If Peterson knew they were protected securities, they'll both face conspiracy charges. Marcus is looking at probably 5 to 10 years in federal prison, plus massive fines. My mother made a choking sound. Prison. Federal prison. Mom, he stole almost $1 million in government property and tried to hide the transaction, I said gently. Did you think there wouldn't be serious consequences? But he's successful, she said weakly. He has restaurants. He's respected in the community. That might actually make it worse, I said. The prosecution will argue that a successful businessman should have known better. It shows knowing intent rather than desperate circumstances. Officer Jackson approached the table. Director Hayes, we've located Peterson. Local FBI is bringing him in now. Preliminary investigation shows he's a known buyer of questionable securities. He's been on our watch list for 18 months. Director Hayes's expression hardened. So this wasn't an innocent transaction. He knew exactly what he was buying. Appears that way, ma'am. Which means Mr. Marcus Thornton either knew or should have known he was dealing with someone who specializes in illegal securities transactions. My father put his head in his hands. How did this happen? How did we not know what you do, Claire? You never asked, I said simply. Every Sunday dinner for 6 years, you asked Marcus about his restaurants, Jennifer about her social media following, but you never once asked me about my actual work. You assumed because I work from home and don't talk about it that it must be insignificant. You could have told us, Jennifer said accusingly. I'm not allowed to discuss classified work, I replied. My security clearance requires discretion. But I tried to tell you I had a serious career. You just never believed me. Officer Williams returned from the home office with several boxes of financial documents. Director Hayes, we're finding some interesting additional transactions. Mr. Marcus Thornton has made several large cash deposits over the past 6 months. Amounts just under the federal reporting threshold. Structuring, Agent Chin said grimly. That's another federal crime. My mother looked like she might faint. How many crimes are there? At this point, I calculated mentally. Securities fraud, theft of government property, money laundering, structuring financial transactions to avoid reporting requirements, and possibly conspiracy if Peterson's history is established. Each carries different sentencing guidelines. Claire, please, my father said, his voice barely a whisper. Isn't there anything you can do? I looked at the man who'd spent my entire adult life dismissing my achievements, favoring my brother's flashy success over my quiet competence. Dad, I've done what I'm legally required to do. Everything else is up to the federal prosecutors now. Director Hayes's phone rang. She answered, listened briefly, then approached our table. Mr. and Mrs. Thornton, the warrant has been approved. The forensics team will need approximately 4 hours to complete their search. You're free to remain in the home, but you cannot interfere with the investigation. For hours, my mother whispered. Federal Securities investigations are thorough, I explained. They need to ensure there are no additional compromised assets or transactions. Officer Park finished his interview notes. Mrs. Thornton, one more question. Did you or your husband receive any benefit from your son's sale of these securities? My mother shook her head. No, nothing. We didn't even know about the sale until tonight at dinner. And yet you immediately defended his actions and dismissed your daughter's concerns, Park noted. That could be interpreted as enabling the crime. We weren't enabling anything, my father protested. We were just supporting our son. By telling him he was right to sell property that didn't belong to him, I said quietly. That's enabling, Dad. Jennifer's phone buzzed. Someone had returned it after downloading its contents. She stared at the screen, then looked up at me with wide eyes. Claire, Marcus is texting from the FBI office. He's saying his lawyer told him he's looking at 15 years minimum because of Peterson's history. That sounds about right, I confirmed. Conspiracy charges with a known criminal actor increase the sentencing guidelines significantly. 15 years, my mother repeated numbly. He'll be 50 years old when he gets out. If he gets out in 15 years, Officer Jackson corrected. Federal sentences don't have parole like state crimes. He'll serve at least 85% of whatever sentence he receives. The forensics team was moving through the house now, their equipment cases and evidence bags visible through the doorway. The elegant Thornton estate, where we'd had hundreds of family dinners over the years, had become the scene of a federal investigation. Director Hayes approached me one more time before leaving. Analyst Thornton, take tomorrow off. Come in Thursday morning for your statement. Given the circumstances, we're also assigning you a counselor to help process the family implications. That's not necessary, ma'am, I said. It's not optional, she replied firmly but not unkindly. You did everything right, but investigating family members takes a psychological toll. The Bureau requires it. After she left, I sat alone at the dining table while the forensics team worked and my family huddled in the living room. My phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. I answered carefully. Claire Thornton, a male voice asked. Speaking. This is Jonathan Peterson. I think we need to talk about those securities your brother sold me. I put the phone on speaker and gestured to Officer Williams, who immediately began recording. Mr. Peterson, I have nothing to discuss with you. You should speak with your attorney. I'm willing to return the securities, he said quickly. Full return, no questions asked. I didn't know they were government property. Mr. Peterson, this conversation is being recorded, and the FBI already has you in custody, I said calmly. Anything you say is evidence. There was a long pause, then the line went dead. Officer Williams smiled grimly. He'll be adding attempted witness tampering to his charges now. That was incredibly stupid of him. People do stupid things when they're desperate, I observed. Speaking from experience? Williams asked. Speaking from 6 years of watching financial criminals make predictable mistakes, I replied. As the evening stretched into night, the forensics team completed their work. They'd found evidence of 3 other questionable transactions Marcus had made over the past year, not involving my securities, but still potentially problematic for his restaurant's financial status. Agent Chin approached my parents with a final warning. Mr. and Mrs. Thornton, we're going to need you to be available for additional questioning. Don't leave the state without notifying us. Are we under investigation too? My father asked hoarsely. Not currently, Chin replied. But depending on what we find in your son's financial records, that could change. If any family money was used to facilitate his transactions or if there's evidence of structured gifting to avoid taxes, we'll need to expand the investigation. After the federal agents finally left, taking boxes of evidence and leaving behind business cards and case numbers, my family sat in stunned silence in their ransacked home office. I stood up, collecting my coat and bag. You're leaving? My mother asked incredulously. After everything that just happened? Yes, I said simply. I have work tomorrow. Despite what you've always thought, I have a very demanding career. Claire, wait, my father said, his voice cracking. We need to talk about this. About what we're going to do. There's nothing to do, I replied. Marcus committed federal crimes. The law will take its course. You should hire him the best criminal defense attorney you can afford, though I doubt it will help much given the evidence. But you could talk to them, Jennifer pleaded. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. I looked at my younger sister who'd spent years mocking my career on social media, posting about her boring sister who plays with stocks. Jen, it wasn't a misunderstanding. Marcus deliberately sold protected federal securities in a structured cash transaction to a known criminal securities buyer. Even if I wanted to help, which I couldn't. The evidence is overwhelming. So that's it, my mother asked. You're just going to let your brother go to prison? I'm not letting him do anything, I said quietly. He made his choices. He spent years belittling my career, dismissing my work, and treating me like a family disappointment. Tonight, when he needed to understand that my work was real and important, he learned the hardest way possible. I walked toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I did try to tell you, all of you. I tried to explain that my work mattered, that I had responsibilities, that I was building something meaningful. But you were so convinced that visible success was the only success that mattered. Marcus's restaurants, Jennifer's Instagram followers, Dad's retired partner status. You never looked beneath the surface to see what I actually did. We didn't know, my father said weakly. You didn't ask, I corrected. There's a difference. I left them there in their elegant home, surrounded by evidence tags and FBI business cards, their perfect family dinner destroyed by federal crimes and broken trust. My phone buzzed as I drove home. A text from Director Hayes. Peterson is cooperating. Full confession. He paid Marcus $47,000 knowing the securities were worth $812,000. They'll both face maximum sentences. Your brother's preliminary charges: securities fraud, theft of government property, money laundering, conspiracy and structuring. Total exposure: 12 to 20 years federal prison, $500,000 in fines, asset forfeiture of the 3 restaurants. Excellent work tonight. Analyst Thornton. I pulled into my tiny apartment parking lot, the 1-bedroom condo that my family had always mocked. It was small, yes, but it was mine. Paid for with my federal salary, my bonuses for excellent security analysis work, and my complete lack of need to impress anyone with flashy success. Inside, I changed into comfortable clothes and opened my laptop. My work email had 17 new messages, most marked classified. The same boring, worthless work my family had dismissed for 6 years. 3 days later, I sat in a federal prosecutor's office giving my official statement. Assistant U.S. Attorney Michelle Torres was handling the case personally. It was high-profile enough to warrant senior attention. Your brother's attorney is pushing for a plea deal, she told me. But given Peterson's confession and the evidence of deliberate structuring, we're not inclined to be generous. What are they offering? I asked. He wants to plead to negligent handling of securities in exchange for dropping the conspiracy and money laundering charges. Would result in probably 18 months minimum security and a $50,000 fine. And you're considering it? Torres smiled coldly. Not remotely. Your brother sold $812,000 in protected government securities to a known criminal for $47,000 in cash. That's not negligence. That's knowing participation in securities fraud. We're offering him one deal: plead guilty to all charges, cooperate fully, and will recommend the lower end of sentencing guidelines. 12 years instead of 20. Will he take it? His attorney says he's still hoping for family intervention. Something about his sister working for the SEC and surely having influence. I shook my head. I'm a senior analyst, not a director. And even if I had influence, I wouldn't use it. My brother needs to face the consequences of his actions. Your family isn't happy with you, Torres observed. My family has never been happy with me, I replied. This is just the first time they've had a reason to admit it. The trial, when it happened 6 months later, was swift and devastating. Peterson had already pleaded guilty and testified against Marcus, confirming that Marcus had specifically sought out a cash buyer willing to avoid oversight. Text messages showed Marcus joking about screwing over his uptight sister, and finally making real money off her worthless portfolio. The jury deliberated for 3 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. At sentencing, Marcus's attorney presented character witnesses, fellow restaurant owners, community leaders, even a city councilman who praised Marcus's business acumen. Then the prosecutor called me to make a victim impact statement. I stood at the podium looking at my brother in his expensive suit, his face gaunt from 6 months of legal stress. Your Honor, I began, my brother didn't just steal government securities. He stole my credibility, my family's trust in my career, and my sense of security in my own family. For 6 years, I worked hard to build a career in federal financial analysis. It's demanding, often classified work that I couldn't discuss at family dinners. Instead of respecting my privacy and trusting that I knew what I was doing, my family dismissed me as a failure. When Marcus sold those securities, he did it believing I was too powerless and too incompetent to stop him. He was wrong. The government takes securities fraud very seriously, as he's now learning. I hope during his incarceration he has time to reflect on the fact that quiet competence is often more powerful than flashy success. I don't forgive him. I don't feel sorry for him. He made his choices and now he's facing the consequences. That's how the law works, regardless of family connections. The judge sentenced Marcus to 14 years in federal prison, $450,000 in fines, and forfeiture of all 3 restaurants to cover the financial damages. Peterson received 12 years for his cooperation. My parents had to sell their estate to help cover Marcus's fines and legal fees. Jennifer's social media following tanked when the story went viral. Influencer's brother convicted in federal securities fraud wasn't the kind of attention she wanted. I got promoted 6 months after the trial. Senior analyst to supervisory analyst with a team of my own and higher security clearance. My work on the case. My immediate reporting, my cooperation with investigators, my professional handling of a difficult family situation, became a training example at the SEC Academy. At my promotion dinner, Director Hayes raised a glass to Analyst Thornton, who proved that integrity matters more than family politics. I thought about Marcus in federal prison, my parents in their downsized condo, Jennifer's abandoned influencer dreams. I thought about all those Sunday dinners where they dismissed my career, mocked my work, and treated me like the family failure. To doing the right thing, I said quietly, even when it costs everything. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I checked it. It was from Marcus, using someone's contraband phone in federal prison. I hope you're happy. You destroyed our family. I deleted it without responding. I hadn't destroyed our family. I'd simply revealed what it had always been. A hierarchy of visible success that valued appearance over substance, flash over competence, and loyalty over legality. They taught me I was worthless. I taught them that even worthless people can have $812,000 in protected federal securities. The lesson had cost them everything. But it had cost me nothing I actually valued.